Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Kenai Council regular meeting for August 16th. I'd like to call the August 16th meeting to order. If you're able, please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dothett. You have,
Uh-oh, mine's on. That's all that matters. Test, test, test. Everybody online, just stand by if you're online. We're having mic issues. Test, test. Are we back on? All right, we're back online. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Dothett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Baisden.
Here.
Councilmember Askin.
Here.
Mayor Gabriel is absent. Councilmember Winger.
Present.
Councilmember Sonart.
Here.
Councilmember Naxted.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. We're now at the approval of the agenda. There are no laydown materials this evening. Is there a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda? Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baisden. I move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda and request unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Thank you. Clerk, would you please read the consent agenda items into the record?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baisden. Approval of the regular meeting minutes of August 2nd, 2023. New business action approval. Bills to be ratified brought to you by the administration. New business action approval recommending the Kenai Peninsula Borough Assembly appoint Kenai City Clerk Shelley Sainer to the Kenai Peninsula Borough Voter Turnout Working Group brought to you by Mayor Gabriel. Ordinances for introduction, ordinance number 3368, 2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the Airport Special Revenue and Airport Operations Facility Capital Fund to provide supplemental funding for the Kenai Municipal Airport Operations Facility Boiler and HVAC Control Replacement Project, brought to you by the administration. Public hearing September 9th. September 6th. And that is your consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any public comments on any of the consent agenda items just read by the clerk? Is there any remote attendees? So unanimous consent was requested. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, hearing no objections, the consent agenda has been approved. Item B, scheduled administrative reports. There are none. Item C, scheduled public comments. Also don't see anything listed there. Unscheduled comments. So now we have unscheduled public comments. Are there any members from the public who would like to speak on any item not appearing on the agenda? Please come forward. And if you would, please turn the mic on and give your name for the record.
Okay, I'm on. Marion Nelson with the Kenai Arts Center. Hello, everybody. And I laid down a greetings letter from the Arts Center having to do with the annual harvest auction coming up at the end of next month, and we are in the process of collecting items, donation items for the auction, which is both outcry auction and silent auction. Outcry on one wall, silent auction on the other. So, and the silent auction items can be bid on throughout the month, as some of you know who've done this before. And if you paid full price for them, then you could have them, but not till the end of the month. Otherwise, it's just open for bidding throughout the month, which is always kind of interesting to see how certain items build on that, others don't. Anyway, so that's kind of the big deal right now for those of us on the board who are out there requesting wonderful items to become part of the auction, as well as items as well as services. And of course, we have tickets available. There's $50 each, and catering is by Hearth, what is it? Catering, yeah. She does such a good job, Virginia. And then Susan Watkins, whose show is up right now, and it's an exceedingly popular show. She, as I've told some of you in the past, her background is unique in that she has done a lot of mural type work for Bass Pro Shops and other similar locations that most people don't have. And so that's what her work looks like. It's underwater, overwater, wilderness, so forth and so on. So it's exceedingly popular in terms of the general public, and I have to say very saleable. So if that kind of work interests you, you should come take a peek. Some of her items are easily as big as that screen, and many of them smaller. She can work very, very large surfaces as well as small ones. And do you have any questions?
Any questions for Marion? Sounds like a great event. Councilmember Dothett.
Just a quick question. The donations you're looking for, they're not necessarily artistic donations. They can be any goods and
Thank you
services.
for bringing that up. I forgot. I'm so used to this. Most of our work that's in the auction is artwork, whereas a lot of auctions that we attend community-wide have maybe some. We have mostly, but we also have many other things, services, items, whatever. We're open to suggestions.
Gift certificates, possibly.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Indeed. Indeed. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Good lead-in. Anybody else?
Thank you, Marion.
You bet.
Anybody else from the public that would like to give an unscheduled public comment? Anybody online? All right, so that takes us to item E, public hearings. The first ordinance is Ordinance 3365, 2023, increasing estimated FY 2023 revenues and appropriations in the general fund, police department accepting a grant from the Alaska High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area and Drug Investigation Overtime Expenditure, brought to us by the administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Askin.
I move we enact ordinance 3365-2023.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Councilmember Dothett. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to Ordinance 3365, 2023? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for comments. Maybe if we could just get a quick overview from the city manager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, council members. So Ordinance 3365 represents reimbursable overtime that the city can receive for our participation in the local drug unit. So we have officers that participate and assist with that unit, and their overtime is reimbursable through the HIDA program. This represents overtime in, I think, the last quarter of fiscal 2023 that we're going to be reimbursed.
Thank you. Any other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Baisden?
Yes.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Councilmember Sonart?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxted?
Yes.
Councilmember Dothett?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Ordinance 3365, 2023 is enacted.
Thank you. That brings us to item E2, ordinance number 3366, 2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the general fund, planning department to complete rezoning of the Kenai waterfront area as identified in the 2022 Kenai waterfront revitalization assessment, brought to us by Councilmember Nackstead. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Nackstead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to enact ordinance 3366, 2023.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the general public that would like to speak to ordinance 3366, 2023? Anyone online? Thank you. So we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Councilmember Nackstead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Last fall, as everybody might recall, we completed the Kenai waterfront revitalization assessment, and it was well attended by the public and seemed to be very positive, and as well as some of the property owners that were down there. And so since that time, some things have happened down in that area, which might have been caused or by the study that we did. That there's 2 RV parks down there now. There's a coffee shop, pull through that might be seasonal. The old Northwest Cannery, it's the oldest cannery site in the Kenai. That's sold to some developers that are looking to make shops out of it, and they've got an acre of dock to do something with, and so they're continuing to work on that. So it kind of fits into all of this. Castig's Brewery has cleared a site. They haven't started pouring foundations yet. The stumps and the logs that came off that, Will Jerrig received, and he's building a breakwater down at the base of the bank on his property there. So those things are all happening, and there's this momentum going. And so I think now is the time to begin the rezone of that area in accordance with, general accordance with the assessment that was done. And the process will be, is well laid out in there by our planner. But the rezone will, in the end, it will embrace basically all of the existing uses down there, the canneries, any kind of use that's already there. It won't zone out anything, but it will encourage other types of uses as kind of laid out in the plan here. The process that you have in front of you was prepared by our planner who's here, and since she is the planner and I'm not a planner, if you have questions about the process or something like that, probably would be best to direct that to her. The funds that are being appropriated will go to basically a contractor, and that contractor will be Max Best, is my understanding. And Max has filled in as our planner in the past. He was planner at the borough for, I'm going to say decades. He was the longest planner there I can recall. Very good at this. But at any rate, the amount of work that is necessary to do this is beyond the ability of our planner, along with all of her other duties that she needs to do. So she opted to go through that. She also prepared the cost estimate that you have there. That didn't come from me. So anyway, I'd encourage us to move forward on this. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Winger.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm not sure if this will be a question for Terry or maybe Linda. So if we go through this change and say one of the people in that area, be it Duke's, a cannery, or Carlisle, sell out, if the use was the same use, would they be grandfathered in to continue a auto shop, or with this rezoning, would that alter or cause a problem with the use?
Director Mitchell.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baisden, and thank you for the question, Councilmember Winger. We have a section of code when it comes to non-conforming uses and stuff. So with the rezone, they would be non-conforming. So as long as they continue the use and don't have a gap of a year or longer, and there are some stipulations to allow them to continue if there's good reasons for the break, if it extends longer than a year of a break, then that's when they lose it. So if the automotive repair, transfers in 6 months, 12 months, they can continue that use. So there are stipulations if it's beyond that 12 month, but less than 18 months, they have to meet certain criteria to continue or be grandfathered in.
Just a follow-up. So if they switch from an automotive shop to a welding shop, that wouldn't be within the same spectrum of use. Would that not be permitted?
Once again, in that code sections, there are provisions. If it's similar in use, it would have to go to the planning commission to be considered to carry on that non-conforming use. So it would be the commission to determine those criteria. Is it similar enough? While it's not perfectly exact, but the impact is similar, planning commission, based on those criteria, can make the determination to potentially allow a use to continue.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dothett.
Can you just, the budgetary side of things and where the funds are coming, can you just kind of go a quick overview on how that would work? Where the funds would come on that? I don't know if that'd be for Terry.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baisden, Councilmember Dothett. When Henry approached me at this, I reached out to Linda and to Max and said, how much time is this project going to take? I think they sat down and worked on a schedule and estimated it's about 250 hours of work. Based upon that 250 hours, we estimated an hourly rate for Max, and so he'll be hired as a temporary employee. It's for him to complete this process with an estimated 250 hours of labor to put into it. Linda's going to be very active in the project as well, but that's where that budget came from and what it represents.
Thank you. Just curious.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, clerk, if you would please call the roll on ordinance 3366, 2033.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Councilmember Sonart?
Yes.
Councilmember Naxted?
Yes.
Councilmember Dothett?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baisden?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Ordinance 3366, 2023 is enacted.
Thank you. Next, we have item E3, ordinance number 3367, 2023, increasing estimated revenues and appropriations in the general fund, street department for award of a contract to replace public sidewalk at 1815 Frontage Road, brought to us by the administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Askin.
I move we enact ordinance 3367-2023.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a second. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to ordinance 3367, 2023? All right, no one in public and no one online, so we'll bring it back to council for discussion. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you. I was wondering if there was an engineer's estimate for this project.
City Manager Eubanks.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Curtin.
Mr. Curtin.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baisden. Through City Manager Eubank, Councilmember Nax said, no, there is not an engineer's estimate for this. This project is a little unique. It doesn't reach the threshold of a standard capital project. Generally, projects in excess of $35,000 would run a standard engineer construction bid build. This one is less than that, so to keep costs down, we pay for those estimates, so we did not do that for this particular project.
Just to follow up, I mean, the cost of doing everything has gone up so much. Is this a reasonable, I mean, is this within the scope of what you expected for the work?
There's no doubt that this is a very expensive expense, but I would also say that is on par with what we are seeing here locally for this type of work. It always amazes me at how expensive things are getting, not just on this type of work, but my opinion, this is largely just a lack of competition in the area. This project came to my attention last year through City Manager Ostrander at that time. We tried to bid it last year. And with all the weather and rain that we had, I couldn't get one contractor that was interested in doing the work. So came back this year and we put it back out. Everyone on the sheet, which is why I listed them, we contacted every one of these individuals personally to try and get them to bid this work, and we only got one bid as a result for the second time of going out. So yes, I think it's expensive. I don't think it's way out of reason. It is a little bit complicated work. There's demolition involved, and it's an operating open business in the area. So there's some complications to it. But and as many of you may know from traveling that area, it needs it. It's pretty severely deteriorating in many locations over there. So.
And if I can, that area is, we're talking about the sidewalk in front of Paradiso's, correct?
Correct.
Councilmember Dothett.
I would just like to say thanks for moving forward with these. These are small little things like this that will continue to show light to our city that we're, citizens of the city, that we're moving forward with these kind of projects that make a huge impression that we're working on maintaining and upgrading some of our infrastructure. And I think it's huge to do these even smaller projects like this to show that. And I'm sure that as we look around the city, we can find maybe another one next year to try to target some sidewalks. That this isn't the only sidewalk, but this is definitely one that's out front and gets a ton of foot traffic on it with all the different parades and everything in that area. And I think this is a very good idea, and I hope we can move forward with that. And assuming they're going to try to get it done this year, I'm guessing is what we're hoping.
Thank you, Director Curtin.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to let council know as well. So when this came to my attention last summer, it was late in the season. We tried to do it. I couldn't get it done. We did apply for some DOT grants at the start of the year. I did request, I believe it was a $600,000 project from DOT along with 5 or 6 other projects. To do main walk, what I call public main walk replacements throughout the city. I did get an email that did qualify, but I for the pool, but I have not gotten any notification that we're getting a grant for that yet. It's still going through that process. So I am pursuing funds to be able to do more of this yet. I just haven't received them yet. So
That would be great.
Thank you. And I guess if I could, for the city manager or for Mr. Curtin, is there a list? So I guess I'm trying to think of, I can't remember, like dealing with sidewalk issues and our capital projects. Do we have a list of things that are out there, maybe safety related or something that brings this to the top, or is it complaint driven? How do we get to that point to where this one is being fixed right now?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Basin. I would say, we're always out looking mainly with street operations, but most of the sidewalk issues are complaint driven. I'd say probably 80% of those are what's drawing our attention. My staff is out looking at sidewalks that are affected. You may have recognized this year, we've been out fixing some storm drains around town that the metal grates have been broken or cracked. We've replaced probably a dozen of those so far this year, which affect sidewalks. Certainly any sidewalks that are in any of the 20 various city-owned facilities that we have as part of facilities management for those. But yeah, 80% of the rest are generally customer notification requests, complaint driven, that sort of thing.
Thank you. Any other questions from council? Seeing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Winger?
Yes.
Councilmember Sonard?
Yes.
Councilmember Nackstead?
Yes?
Councilmember Dothett?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Baisden?
Yes.
Councilmember Askin?
Yes.
You have 6 yes votes. Ordinance 3367, 2023 is enacted.
That brings us to item E4 on the agenda, resolution number 2023-51, approving an amendment to the lease for the portion of Lot 3, Block 17, original town site of Kenai between the City of Kenai and Peninsula Art Guild, Inc., to accommodate an existing and proposed new shed, brought to us by the administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Nackstead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to adopt Resolution 2023-51.
I'll second.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to Resolution 2023-51? Seeing none online, we'll bring it back for discussion. Pleasure, council. Yes. Councilmember Councilmember Nackstead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just wanted to say, the shed that's there is well-built. It looks very nice. There's an existing shed, and the earthwork, the groundwork that's been done, it's a crushed rock. It also looks very nice and very professional. And it is my understanding that the next shed that would go would be very similar in design. I think it's got kind of a gable-type roof, and it would also have the crushed rock that would continue out. So I think it's a good addition to the Kenai Arts Center, and I think it'll look nice, and I personally think it'll look good along really what's going to be a project there pretty soon, I hope, for that playground redesign that's being worked. So it'll kind of mesh in there very nicely. So I definitely support this this lease amendment.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Was unanimous requested?
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous was requested. Any objection? Seeing none, Marion, I was going to invite you up, but I knew this would pass pretty easy, so we probably didn't need you on this one. Thank you. Okay, that brings us up to item E5, resolution number 2023-52, authorizing a contract award and corresponding purchase order for the cemetery Phase 2 fencing project brought to us by the administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Nackstead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to adopt resolution 2023-52.
I second.
Thank you. Motion was seconded. Do we have anybody from the general public that would like to speak to resolution 2023-52? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Councilmember Nackstead.
So I don't have to repeat myself. Basically, the same questions as on the sidewalk, price-wise, and I don't know if there's an engineer's estimate on this too. I don't know how much fencing costs anymore.
We'll go back to Director Curtin. Is that all right, City Manager?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Bazin, Councilmember Nackstead for the question. So we had some early numbers from Nelson Engineering when this was put on. I actually did a lot of research into this, trying to get something that was going to complement the existing cemetery fence. So I had a pretty good idea of what this was going to cost. I put the engineer estimate together for this. My estimate was $150,000, so it came in $2,000 less than what I had estimated for the project. I put some pictures in the packet along with a map for you guys, so you kind of have an idea of what to expect. I'd say the biggest difference is, the fence manufacturers, they do not like the pointed top fences because of the moose in the area. They were, like everyone I talked to was like almost adamant about not putting a pointed top fence up unless we went 8, 9, 10 feet tall, just because they've been called out on so many moose getting trapped or stuck on them. So they were really adamant about, please don't, do that type of fence and go with this one. This is a pretty substantial fence. This is going to be around long-term. All of the posts for this fence are going to be in concrete. They're not just put in the sand and stuff. They're actually concreted in place. And it's an actual steel. It's a coated steel fence. It's not aluminum. So it's a much more substantial fence. So if landscapers hit it with mowers and weed eaters, it's a much beefier fence, which is on par with what we have at the existing facility. Wildlife does traffic the area, which is why we're leaving the creek side open. We didn't want to have a situation where a moose got trapped inside and didn't have a way to get out and was running around away from people. So we're going to monitor that section down there, but our intent is to leave that open so things can come and go through the creek side. But I'm really looking forward to getting this one done. It's going to be beautiful, and it will go a long way to securing the property. So.
Thank you, Mr. Curtin. So I want to start off with a comment, if I could, while everybody's here. So I'm looking at page 26, dealing with the plat and how you've got the fence drawn out around there with the gate. And I haven't brought anything forward to the council yet, but when we get into the next phases, there's an area that I'm looking at that I'd like to present maybe as a veterans memorial inside of the next phases. And I know there may be other ideals, but instead of bringing the fence down to where you cut off the expansion, why didn't we just bring the fence all the way down the front and finish it off, because eventually we're going to have to take that fence down in the middle and move that and have that cost associated with there. Is there any thought of why we did that or why we couldn't do it the other way? Mr. Curtin?
Vice Mayor Basin. So it all came down to costs. We're just trying to conserve costs as best we can. When this project was originally put forth, there wasn't really a great level of understanding of what we were actually going to be building. This is when the original, concepts were just getting talked about. I want to say the original project was funded at $250,000. And just as you go through, the course of this project, when you look at this image and everything else that we do, this is probably 3 times that cost in reality of a fully built out, cemetery project. So we're just trying to be mindful of costs. So yes, I would say as the cemetery continues to get built out, there is the potential for additional plots to extend all the way down to Second Avenue, and potentially that fence line would encompass all the way down that direction.
Well, I guess my comment was not looking at adding to the cost, but deleting how you've got it coming through the middle and taking it down Floatplane Road as far as you can to Second Avenue and making it look finished throughout that area, I guess would be my only comment. But, I mean, I support the fencing. I don't want to add any additional cost to it, but it just seems like eventually, I mean, I don't have my calculator here, but we're going to have to take down hundreds of feet of fencing whenever we go to the next phase, and why would we want to do that?
I see that makes more sense now. So there's actually a private residence on that parcel that's directly below us. So that fence would likely stay there, that 165 feet that runs down the middle. That's separating a private residence that runs there. So we would still have to run a fence down their property line to Second.
Wants to extend that.
Yeah, and again, I'm not looking at the residence, I'm looking at to where so you come in and you park, and the fence would go around the parking if you wanted to, and you just extend it down Floatplane Road and then come back down Second as far as we had, and that way it looked like the whole front of the cemetery would be finished off, I guess would be my only question or comment. Sorry, I didn't see you down there. So, council members.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Vice Mayor
Winger,
Baisden.
sorry.
I was just wondering maybe if we can have just a quick at ease, just so that we all have a complete understanding of this map, because I know there's been discussion up here trying to understand, just so we can have clarity on where that residence is.
Sure, let's take a 5-minute at ease. Thank you, clerk. Are we back online? Yes, we're good. So we're back online, talking about Resolution 2023-52, the contract award, the fencing for the cemetery project, and we have City Manager Eubank at the monitor is going to show us a little bit of discussion here. Yeah, I did look at it wrong. I was looking at the residents there, so that's not included. So it is a larger portion that I was looking at. So that helps me. Thank you. Councilmember Winger.
Thank you. Just a question. This would be for Shelley, I'm assuming. How many plots were in our old cemetery?
Thank you. I do not have that number off the top of my head. We are working on getting all of the data. We have it. I just don't have the number.
Okay.
Councilmember Nackstead.
Yeah, just looking at the area, it's roughly 300 by 300, maybe a little more. It's about just over 2 acres. And pretty good sized area. And of course, I was going to ask another question that Shelley may not be able to answer, but what is the projected, it might be a Scott question actually, what is the projection to fill the area that is fenced in as it is right now? I mean, roughly 10 years, 50 years, 30 years?
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. We don't have an estimate, and I was adding really quickly, doing some math to see how many plot locations are in the design. So if you'll let me finish calculating, I can tell you how many plots. I will also tell you that the number of plots looks like probably a 50-year or better plan. 50-year or better plan. Yes.
If I can, I'm going to add one more comment. I'll come back. I'll come back to you. So let's think about this too. And this might be I think I know the answer to this. We're going to go ahead and mobilize a contractor to do this. Why don't we go ahead and complete it now? Because in 10 or 15 years, it will cost how much more to do it compared to today. If we had the money to complete it, go ahead and put the fencing around this the way we want to and be done with it, including the other phase, while we've got to mobilize, it seems like we would save the taxpayers a lot of money up front if we did it that way. Maybe through the city manager, what your thoughts are.
Well, I definitely don't think, or sorry, Vice Mayor Bazin, I definitely don't think things are going to get cheaper in the future. So I think there's absolute validity if we mobilize now, it would be cheaper to do it now. What I'm a little unsure of is, the total final project budget for this, because that big oval circle there is an area where we plan to install, what are they? where you put crematory or
Columbarium.
yeah, columbariums and things like that. So there's other work to still be done here on site, and we were just trying to operate within a budget that we thought could provide the adequate protection to the grave sites that are going to be in this section, and also being mindful of being able to complete the whole build out of the new cemetery.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilmember?
Thank you.
Winger.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've asked my questions. I guess my only concern would be, 20 years, 30 years down the line, we're not going to be able to get matching fencing. So what we have now, there couldn't always be a guarantee that that same material would be in there. So that's something to, I guess, be mindful in the future. I do support the fencing of this. I'm happy to see that we're going with the fencing option and not the natural landscaping. I do appreciate the floatplane sign being removed lately. It would be great to see the Jersey barriers removed that have been being spray painted, and that would be alleviated by putting the fence in. So I am in support of this. I do agree with the Vice Mayor that I would like to see this just done correctly, so that we're not expanding and changing materials 20 years from now. But if Shelley's saying this is 50 years, I will be supporting this.
Councilmember Dothett?
I'm definitely in support of the fence. It was something that I noticed last year when we already have graves being set in place in this new facility, and it just was completely out and open to the public, and I had a really big concern about graves purposely or accidentally being possibly desecrated by people running ATVs and stuff. They didn't even know there was a boundary there, and I really think this is important to get it done, definitely before the snow flies again. And I think it's something we can finish this project out, get the centerpiece done, and then 2 or 3 years down the road, once we've got that done, we can always reapproach. We don't have to wait 50 years necessarily, but if we do in the next, I would say to keep an eye out for within the next 5 years, plan on possibly finishing the fencing out. So hopefully we can maybe keep that and reapproach that. If we're $150,000 for all the fencing we have here, that other small area there doesn't seem like it's going to be an exorbitant amount of money, but we can definitely make sure we finish out what we've got plans for, and then maybe in the in the 5-year future, look at possibly adding on and finishing the rest of that fencing out. But I think the fencing looks great, and I'm very happy to see it moving forward and cleaning that area up and making it look like an official grave sites for future people to be able to lay their loved ones in, and I think it's going to look great. So thank you for all the work doing this, and I'm glad we're seeing it moving forward before it flies. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Was unanimous consent requested?
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent was requested. Any objection? Seeing no objection, Resolution 2023-52 passes. Next on the agenda, we have new business, H7, action approval approving official bond amounts for city manager, the city clerk, and finance director, brought to us by the administration. Pleasure of council. Councilmember Naxted.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move that we approve the official bond amounts for the city manager, city clerk, and finance director, and request unanimous consent.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? If we could maybe just get an overview real quick from the city manager of what this is about for the public.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm going to defer to our finance director and let him speak to this one.
Our new finance director, Mr. Swerner. I know I missed your first meeting, so welcome.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Basin. I'm a little behind here on this one. Which one are we?
Oh, did the city manager tee this up for you?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Oh man,
Caught me a
we're
little
on
off guard here.
item H7 or H. Is it H? I'm sorry, H4. Why do I have H? I've got H7. H4. I'm sorry. Yes. Dealing with the official bond amounts for the city manager, city clerk, and finance director. I was just gonna ask why these are needed, so the public can understand what this is about.
I'm not prepared to answer this at this time. We have to defer this to city manager.
We'll come back to the city manager.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So within Kenai Municipal Charter, Section 4-3, it requires annually that council prescribe the bonding amount for 3 positions within the city: city manager, city clerk, and the finance director. I do think the titles are a little different in charter and don't necessarily represent our current titles for the positions, but these are the positions that it's intending. Our general liability coverage through Alaska Municipal League Insurance Pool covers all city employees for employee dishonesty up to $500,000. We can get inexpensive bonding for the 3 positions at about $360 a year. Or if council wanted to go higher than $100,000 in bonding, it starts to get relatively cost prohibitive at that point. It gets really expensive. So if council agrees and approves or sets the bonding amount for the 3 employees at $100,000, it's a cost of about $360,000, and each of those positions would have coverage of about $600,000 for employee dishonesty. So that's the recommendation of the administration, is that we, council respectfully set that bonding amount at $100,000.
Thank you. Councilmember Naxted?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to amend my motion, if, and it's a friendly amendment. I read simply the subject line. If you look at the last line, I think that it's important that we include in the motion the dollar amount. So I'd like to amend by adding at the end of my motion, where it was, and finance director, in the amount of $100,000.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion? The amendment passes, so we're back to the original motion as amended.
Request unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent was asked for. Any objection? Seeing no objection, the bond amounts for the clerk, the city manager, the finance director, and we had somebody, those 3, correct? Thank you. Passed. Brings us to item I on the agenda, commission and committee reports. First up is Council on Aging. Councilmember Sonart.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baisden. So, Council on Aging met last Thursday, August 10th. It was not a meeting, it was a work session, and I'm going to defer to Mr. Curtin because he was there and did a question and answer session with them.
Thank you for that. Mr. Curtin, anything you want to share?
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor Basin and Councilmember Sonart. So I was very graciously hosted last Thursday. We did touch on primarily 3 capital projects. I brought them up to speed with my current understanding of where we're at with the bluff stabilization project. We had a few questions on that. We're still awaiting our PPA agreement. City manager and I are continuing to work on that. So I just brought them up to speed a little bit on that and some of the things that are going on. Currently, right now, we're advertised out on the street for the Vintage Point boiler replacement, which also includes the backup power generator for that facility. So we actually had a pre-bid meeting earlier at that property, and it was actually well attended by contractors, so I was genuinely excited about that. Bids are due on that project next Wednesday. And then we went over a couple of upcoming projects that they had some interest in, mainly doors and access controls, and I kind of explained some of the situations and nuances going on with those projects, and we are going to report back to them with some options on door materials and things like that for their understanding. So had a lot of discussions on egress, which way doors need to swing for getting out of the building, and codes, and what certain choices, how it affects costs and things like that on the building. And then on the senior center, we had some little stuff. They had a dishwasher go down last week. I think the parts for that showed up today. We chatted about that a little bit. So I think that's getting fixed, and just a few other general questions on the senior center itself. So, but it was a great meeting. I appreciated being invited, and I was happy with how it went. I thought it went really very well. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. The next report is the Airport Commission. Councilmember Askin.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baisden. The August 10th meeting was canceled because of lack of agenda items. The next meeting is September 14th.
Thank you. Harbor Commission, Councilmember Dothett.
We tried to have a meeting, but did not have a quorum, so the meeting was stopped rather quickly and turned into a little bit of talk session and continued on until we hopefully have enough members show up next time.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation Commission, Councilmember Nackstead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. No report. Next meeting, September 7th.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Commission. Councilmember Dothett, I have to get here, but that's me, and I think the last one was canceled. So our next meeting is August 23rd, if I think I've got this right. I'm getting a nod that I've got that right. Beautification Committee, Councilmember Winger.
Thank you. Beautification Committee will be meeting on September 12th.
Thank you. So that brings us to the report of the mayor. Don't have a report for the mayor, but I'll just make a few comments, and you guys may have some of these comments also. Triumphant Theater groundbreaking is this Saturday at 11 a.m. Industry Days this week from 12 to 4, I think is the time for the park strip. And I'll thank for all those who are running for city council. It's a big step when you put your name out there, and I appreciate everybody who does that. And that's all I've got for the mayor's report. Administration report, city manager.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, council members. Just a couple things to report. City Attorney Bloom and I did meet with representatives from the Boys and Girls Club and the Evensons to discuss that right-of-way vacation on South Spruce Street. I think they've come to a tentative agreement. They're working on the documents. They're going to send them over for our review and comment. But I think that should be ready for that first meeting in September. Interviews for the airport manager vacancy that we have. We selected 5 applicants for interview. We've interviewed 4. One elected to withdraw, and we have 2 selected for second interviews this Friday. I can say I really appreciate Mary filling in down there as the interim, and also she's assisting with the selection process. So the administration is in the process of applying for the drinking water loan to build the new pump house. You will have a resolution before you on the first meeting there in September 6th, to authorize the application. It's a requirement of DEC, so we'll be bringing that forward. I have had a couple questions regarding some utility work that's going on bridge access. NSTAR is replacing a 4-inch gas line with an 8-inch gas line. And I think what this is related to is the amount of flow both in and out of the gas storage facility down there has really increased, and I don't think NSTAR has the volume that they need to at certain times, so they're increasing these line capacities to get that increased flow that they need. Bluff erosion. I did get an update today. They're tentatively have us scheduled for October 13th as a signing. So they're waiting a water quality certificate from DEC and a couple more reviews. There's nothing outstanding from the city. And as far as the October 13th date in core language, they said it's tentatively scheduled for October 13th, but it could slide left. And I'd let them know that I'm getting, my core language is getting better, but to slide left means it could be sooner. Okay, so, but I did confirm that, just so you know. And then the last thing is I will be out of the office from August 30th through September 10th. I'm really going to have very limited access, probably text only during that time. And Chief Ross will be the acting city manager in my absence. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Winger.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you for your report, City Manager. Just wondering when we will get a finalized PU fishery report.
City Manager Eubank.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, Councilmember Winger. I think that report usually comes out October, November-ish. you know, right now the departments are just cleaning up all the bills, so we got to get all that information in and compile the reports. But I expect it probably, you know, October timeframe.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the city manager? Moving on, city attorney, Mr. Bloom.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Basin. I don't have any comments, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to the city clerk report. Ms. Sainer.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Baisden. Just a couple things. Candidate filing period closed today. Finalized the ballot order and got that off to the borough first thing this morning with our voter pamphlet pages. The student representative applications should be dispersed at the schools this Friday. It just started, but my communication says they'll get them out. So we should be looking at appointments in September, hopefully. And also, I have been invited to speak at the Kenai Historical Society meeting on September 10th about what we're doing to preserve the history in our cemetery, and I've accepted, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the clerk? Seeing none, thank you for your report. That brings us to item L, additional public comments. Are there any members from the public who would like to address the council at this time? See nothing online. So that brings us to council comments. We'll start down to the end. Councilmember Dothett.
I'm just excited to see a lot of interest in city council this year. It's good to see a lot of people wanting to run, and should be a good election. And then I am excited to say that we should be moving into our new facility pretty much by the end of the week, and hopefully we'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony here by the end of the month for our new offices here in town. And the yard turned out really good, and I've actually got a few people interested in other lots in the city, seeing that there's some motivation out there for new construction. So hopefully they continue to move forward with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Sonart.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Basin. I would like to welcome our new finance director. It's nice to have somebody finally on board, and I'm excited to hear about the interviews coming up for the airport director position. That's always good. And I hope everybody's gardens are doing okay at this point. I know it's been a rough summer for that hobby, but if you're a gardener, hang in there and just keep enjoying what's left of summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Askin.
Good meeting tonight, and we're moving forward on lots of neat projects. Good luck to our candidates for city council. I just got back from 2 weeks with family outside, and it is very nice to be home. Thank you.
I agree. Councilmember Winger.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Great discussion tonight. I don't know if you guys looked in your mid-month report. The Slash site has up to 48 acres of remediation, so people are definitely utilizing that. I've got it under the good word that Connect Construction will be starting Willow Street, hopefully within, I think their target goal is next week. They are kind of at a hold pattern on their Funny River through the holidays, and they will move over, and they're expecting like 4 or 5 days to knock out the first part of Willow Street. Looking forward to that because my husband gets to work closer to home. And other than that, I hope everybody's kids who have kids in school had a great first day. Make sure you're being careful. I appreciate KPD, their presence. Your officers have been driving around. I appreciate the slow down signs. And great meeting. I'll see everybody next time around.
Thank you. Councilmember Naxted.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to start with noticing Mr. Daniel here in the audience. He's a new candidate for city council, first time, so good luck on that, and good luck to everybody else. And I'm kind of gearing up to have to go campaigning now. Got my signs ready. So at any rate, I am looking forward to this weekend, the Triumvirate Theater. I'll be there, and as well as the industry appreciation. That's always fun. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Pending items. We do have one pending item, Resolution 2023-49. That will be back for the council on September 6th. Having no other business before the body, we are adjourned.
Under an